Hello, my name is Florian and I welcome you to IT Tech Tips. In this episode we are having our first hands-on experience in our Extending the Lab series. We're going to set up a DHCP server. I will tell you some additional information about what DHCP is and how it works, and we will provide the clients in our AcmeNet with a dynamic IP address which is close to a real-life scenario. Let's have a look. Before we are actually going to begin the configuration of our DHCP server, we have to do some preparation work on our virtual PC Acme-DC01, which will host the DHCP server. We're going to install the VirtualBox guest editions. These are a set of tools which make it easier to handle the server in Oracle VirtualBox. It will allow us to copy files in the future by drag and drop or using the clipboard, and it will allow us to resize the window while Windows will automatically adjust the resolution of the display. I'll show you that after we've installed it. First, make sure that Acme-Router is running and then start Acme-DC01 if it's not running already. After the boot has completed, log in with your password. And just give it a few minutes until everything has loaded and is ready. Click on Devices and then on the bottom install Guest Editions, which will mount a virtual DVD drive, and that you can open in your Windows File Explorer. There you start the installation AMD 64, which is the 64-bit installation because we are using a 64-bit operating system. Keep the default options selected, click Next a few times and then on Install. You will get a security prompt where you have to select Always Trust Oracle and then click Install, and after the installation is complete, reboot the server. Log in, and now we can select a few options which weren't available before. On the top, select Devices, Shared Clipboard and Bidirectional, which allows you to copy files from and to the virtual PC. Also, click again on Devices and allow bidirectional drag and drop, which allows you to do that by drag and dropping and not using just a clipboard. As you can see, you can now resize the window and the resolution of Windows is automatically adjusted, which is a really neat feature. On your host PC, temporarily create a text file on your desktop. Just input some random content, save it, and in Acme-DC01, navigate to the desktop and drag and drop the file from the host desktop to the virtual PC's desktop. If that worked, you can delete the file on both systems, on the host and on the virtual PC. That's that for the installation of the guest editions. If you like, you can do that also on Acme-Router and on the client PCs. I will not cover that topic anymore in future videos. Alright, you're now ready to finally set up the DHCP server on Acme-DC01. Make sure that Acme-Router is running as well, and start Acme-DC01 if it's not running already. Log in and give it a few moments until everything has loaded in the background. After you've done that, your Windows should look similar to this one in the video. In the Server Manager, go to Manage and choose Add Roles and Features. Click Next on the first window and on the second window as well. Choose Acme-DC01, which is the only server at the moment in the list, and in the server roles select the DHCP server. Make sure that you include the management tools, which is the checkbox on the bottom left, and select Add Features. Select Next. You can scroll through the list of features if you're interested to see what's happening and select Next again. And I strongly suggest that you read through this page because it's a good summary about what the DHCP server does. The most important point of this page, in my opinion, is the last sentence, which reads, before you install the DHCP server, you should plan your subnets, scopes and exclusions. Store the plan in a safe place for later reference. The point here is plan first, act later. I've been in the IT business for a long time and I see it more often than not that the IT professional is just doing something and after that it gets maybe documented, it gets maybe tested. Make sure you understand your customer first, create a plan, create a test scenario and then do the work. After you've read the description, you can click Next and install. Wait a few moments until the installation is done. And on the top of the window you now see a yellow exclamation mark. We can click and there's a link, complete DHCP configuration, which we will click as well. A small wizard opens which informs you that two Windows groups are about to be created called DHCP administrators and DHCP users. They are later used for security reasons, so you can, if you wish, restrict users from administrating the DHCP server. For the moment, just click on Commit and let the wizard do the tasks. It will take about 2 seconds, then you can close the wizard. Now it's time to restart Acme-DC01. Log in after the reboot. Wait a few seconds until everything has loaded and then you can go to the Windows Administrative Tools and select the DHCP Administration Interface. As always with the programs I'm going to use often, I will right-click on the icon in the taskbar and select Pin to Taskbar so I can access it easier in the future. Click to the tree to get an overview about the DHCP server. As you can see, we don't have a DHCP-Scope created yet. That's what we're going to do first. The scope defines in what IP range the clients can get an IP address dynamically. So they're not just getting a random IP address out of nowhere. You as a network administrator define from which to which IP address the clients can use one. We're doing that by right-clicking on IPv4 and selecting New Scope. Click Next and enter a name for the scope and a description which makes it easier for you to later reference it. We are calling it AcmeNet Client Scope and the description is providing dynamic IP addresses for clients in AcmeNet. Click Next and here you enter the starting IP address and the ending IP address. And within this range, the clients get an IP address dynamically assigned. In the bottom half of the window, you see the subnet mask and the bit length of the subnet mask. We have seen that before in the Setting Up the Lab series. Here you can click on the bit length, which is 24 by default, and you can see how the numbers below change, so you get a feeling for it without a lot of mathematics. Just click around a bit but at the end, keep it on 24. That's really important, otherwise the network would not work anymore. When you're done, click Next, and we will not exclude any range, so you can click Next again. The least duration is the amount of time a client can keep the IP address it got from the DHCP server. So by default it's 8 days. This might change in the future, I don't know that. So the value might differ on your system depending on when you watch this video. So if a client gets an IP address from the server, it knows that in 8 days it will get a new IP address from the server. It might get the same IP address again, but it's not guaranteed because it's dynamic IP address assignment. A few moments ago we've created the IP range from 100 to 254. If this range is too small and you have more clients that could fit in this range, in that case it would be 155 clients. If you have, say, 200 clients, then about 40 clients will not be able to get an IP address and will therefore not be able to access the network. So make sure that your range is large enough. 155 is plenty for our lab environment, so no worries about that. When you're asked to configure the DHCP options, keep the selection at Yes and select Next. The default gateway, as you know, is 192.168.77.1, which is our Acme-router. Click Next, and as you can see, it took the DNS server which was configured on this server already. So the DHCP server by default will provide the address of the DNS server to the clients which it had itself. For the moment we keep it at 4x8, which is the Google DNS server, but in the next video we will set up our own DNS server and then we're going to have to change that. So just click Next. We will not provide a Win server because this is a really old technology, so just click Next. And really important, keep the selection at Yes, I want to activate the scope now. When the wizard is complete, you can navigate to IPv4 in the left side of the window, and now you can see there's the scope we have just created. Including the address pool, please double check that you have the same range of IP addresses entered and made no typos, because otherwise the clients will not be able to connect to the network. And that's that for the DHCP server. Now we're going to configure both of our clients to get a dynamic IP address from our freshly configured Acme-DC01, which is now acting as a DHCP server. For that, make sure that Acme-DC01 and Acme-router are running, and if they have not been running, make sure to wait about 5 minutes before you start the first client, Acme-client01. When the client has booted, log in. And go to the configuration of the network adapter. If you have trouble finding the configuration of the network adapter, please rewatch the first series setting up the lab. The network adapter currently is configured as manual, and we assigned the IP address etc. .50 with the subnet mask of 24 bits. Now we're going to change from manual to DHCP, automatic, and just click Save. The rest the client will get automatically from our freshly configured DHCP server. As you can see, it got the IP address 100, which is the first address from the range we've configured. If we now go to Acme-DC01 to our DHCP configuration, you can see under address leases there are no entry. right-click in the empty space and choose Refresh, and now you can see we have an entry for our clients. So all address leases are registered in the DHCP server and you can easily access it for reference. Start Acme-Client 02, log in and also go to the network configuration. We are doing the exact same thing we did with the first client. We change from manual to automatic. As you can see now it's in manual and we have the previously assigned IP address 51. Go to Edit, choose Automatic and Save. After a very short moment, you can see that it got the IP address 101, which is the second IP address available in our range. And if you go back to our DHCP server, right-click and refresh in the address leases, the client should appear in this list as well. You can shut down all of our clients and the DHCP server Acme-DC01. So we can take snapshots of each of these virtual PCs so we can go back to it easy in the future if something goes wrong while we are experimenting. I call the snapshot DHCP server for Acme-DC01 and with the clients I just call it DHCP. That's that for our client configuration. You now have a working DHCP server in our Acme Corporation network and we have the clients which get a dynamic IP address. So we're ready for the next video in which we're going to install a DNS server so the client can look up their names in our network by using our own DNS server, which will also be a requirement for episode 10 when we will install the Active Directory domain services. So stay tuned, subscribe and ring the bell. See you next time.